Hey everybody, it's Monday night and I really need to get the water change done on this tank. The glass is just disgusting and I think everything filter wise is going to be okay. I'm not even going to mess with that tonight. I just want to get this tank cleaned up a little bit. So we're going to do a basic water change. I'm going to wipe the glass down. Not going to mess with the filter tonight, but I am going to get out my little siphon hose and we're going to go around and try to siphon out some of that green film that's growing on all the stuff that's in here. If I can find my head strap, I will strap that on and put my GoPro on, but I think that is actually outside in my truck. So you may wind up sitting there for several minutes and then I might come back out of breath when I get to doing the wiping the glass down part. But at any rate, we need to get started getting the water out of there first, so let's get on with that and then we can play it by ear from there. I've been looking around and it doesn't look like I need to worry too much about doing a gravel vac. And if you're familiar with my other water change videos, this siphon hose is a very poor gravel vac. I more or less use this as a water changer, and if I need to do any genuine gravel vacuuming, I've got a little hand vac and I just do that right into a 5-gallon bucket. Now what I do is I close the lid and that holds the end further down here, so as the water circulates and comes around the tank, the lower strata, detritus and stuff, is more likely to get picked up by it as the water drains out of the tank. So let's get that started now. Alright, now to make it drain better and faster, I always take the hose and unscrew it from the utility sink in the other room. The utility sink, the faucet is probably about this high off the ground, so I don't get a lot of gravity causing a lot of negative pressure. So I unscrew it and I actually just set the hose at floor level. I have a walk-in shower stall in the bathroom in the other room and I just lay the hose basically on the floor, and that gives me much more, you know, the further the water has to fall, the more energy it pulls, and I'll get better suction by doing it that way. So while that's happening, I want to get working on siphoning some of the green stuff out of here, because that's going to need water in the tank in order to do it. Now I've tried using the larger vinyl hose in the past, and while it does suck it out in huge clumps, it also rips leaves apart and causes some problems. So we're going to start with this very thin hose. This is airline hose, as a matter of fact, and we're going to try just getting some of the stuff off of the more easier to access. Now I do have some clumps of this growing on the substrate too. Much the way, if you're familiar with my brackish tank, you know, I get those little clumps of that red stuff growing. Well, this has some clumps of the green version. Same stuff, I guess, or different species, but Cyanobacteria, I'm assuming. And so this little vac will not be enough. You know, this little thin airline hose, this will definitely not be enough to suck the stuff up off the bottom of the tank, because that's going to bring a little bit of gravel and stuff up with it. It's really growing onto the substrate. So once I've gotten all this more superficial stuff off my plants and got a little bit of it growing on the leaves and my other stuff, and it's growing on the surface of the wood right here, and it's a little time consuming when you use one of these little hoses like this, but it's a lot better for your plants and it's not like I'm in any kind of a hurry. The only thing I'm not going to be doing is standing here watching water drain out of the tank, so I may as well do this while I'm waiting. The 125 gallon tank takes a little longer to do the water change than when I'm just doing a quick one out of one of my 20s or 29 or something. I just use a 5-gallon bucket and do a brief water change with that. This can be 25 or 30 minutes simply of standing around letting water drain out of the tank, and another 25 or 30 letting it fill back up. So normally I do these uninterrupted water change videos, and I may still do it uninterrupted. I may see if I can figure out how to do some fast motion through some of the, watching the water fill up scenes. Maybe I can chat and tell you some anecdotal stories about my early days in fish keeping or something. I don't know, but we got lots of video ahead of us because we barely got an inch of water drained out of the tank so far. I would like to have wiped it down a little more, the glass that is, so you can kind of get a little better idea and see what I'm doing. But as I said, I need the volume of water in the tank to be fairly full while I do this. And I am leaving the filter on while I do this too, so you're going to see some bubbles and hear some noises and all that coming out of the tank. That is to be expected. The other benefit of using this tiny little siphon hose is that I can do this for quite a while without really filling that 5-gallon bucket up. The 5-gallon bucket barely has an inch of water in the bottom of it yet. If I was using my big siphon hose, it's just, it's so hit or miss. It sucks the water out of there so fast, and it just, if you're not careful, you suck fish out of the tank with that, wide open hose I've got. So this is, like I said, it's a little more time consuming, but it's a little more gentle on the tank. It's a little more careful, and as I said, we've got time to kill, so this is how we're doing it. Got some reasonably exciting news, but I don't want to make it public just yet until I really kind of give it some thought to what I'm going to do with it. But there is right now video over on my Patreon page for my rapidly dwindling number of patrons over there. If they want to have a look and see what I got going on, what I picked up today, there is a video over there right now. So I'm excited about it. I just don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it just yet, so I'm not going to say too much more. But on the Patreon note, I noticed that YouTube is doing something different now too, and they even specifically said it's to sort of compete with Patreon. If people want to support the channel but don't want to have a membership over on Patreon, they can actually do paid memberships on the YouTube channel now. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. I haven't looked into it. I know I am eligible for it. I've got a section where I can check to see if I have any people subscribed to me yet, or paid memberships I should say, and so on and so forth. So if you're interested in that, check that out. I don't really know what all that involves, but like the same way with my Patreon, my mentality is to have more of a sort of personal, closer knit kind of behind the scenes, less formal. Oh, just lifted my hose up and I think I broke my suction. Nope, I didn't. But it never really panned out over on the Patreon, and I got to thinking about why, and it makes sense. A lot of what I do on Patreon is my outdoors videos and stuff like that. And of course my outdoors videos are my least popular videos here on my YouTube channel. So why would anybody that watches me here on YouTube and enjoys all my fish videos or whatever want to go over to Patreon and watch a whole completely different kind of video? So I've tried doing the behind the scenes fish tank stuff video and behind the scenes here in the fish room and that sort of thing. And again, I just don't really seem to get a whole lot of response and interaction. I would be more than happy to, you know, shoot videos for people that, you know, take requests, all that kind of stuff. I just never get any. Nobody ever talks to me or makes any requests. So it's up to you. If you're one of my few remaining patrons, you want to see something specific or whatever, let me know. I will certainly shoot some video or discuss it or whatever. That's what the whole purpose of the Patreon's there for. I can't believe how much of this green stuff is growing in the tank. I wonder how long it's been since I've done a water change on this tank. I know the last time I did a water change on this tank, I really wiped down the underside of the glass and everything. So I basically effectively turned the lighting up about 500% probably, and that's why I'm having an explosion of this stuff like this. But we're only up to about 2.5 inches of water in the bucket. I can just keep going and going and going. But I'm running out of stuff to remove at this end. Try to get a little more off of this before it's exposed above the water line, because as I keep saying, in order to siphon it out of there, I need it under the water. But I also need to be able to see it, and I could not before. Well, that's not perfect, but that's good enough for that. Let me come down this end and see if we got any more that needs to come off. This end tends to get blocked by the, now I'm clogged up here. That was me blowing through it, not the other way around, just trying to blow that stuff out. Now I got to start the siphon again. I'm going to call that good for now. Next we're going to start working on getting the glass cleaned off. And I don't know why, but I always start at this end and work my way across. Now that I can see through the glass, I can see all that green cyanobacteria I missed. So I'm not going to go crazy on the tank tonight. I just need to get some of this done and get some water change done. Then I got to get everybody fed, and I got to get my own dinner and all that stuff. So that's why this is going to be a fairly thorough water change, but I'm not going to go crazy on it because I hope to be back in this tank within another week or so doing some more work in here. And I can worry about getting more of that, still tripping over a piece of PVC pipe all over the floor from that failed waterfall. That idea is not completely dead yet either, everybody, so don't give up on the idea that we're going to still have my garden tank and all that coming back. It's just on hold for the moment. But I assure you, it's especially by the time the weather gets good and cold. It's supposed to be like 40 degrees next week or something, so I'm pretty much in for the year now, unless we have some more warm weather. As far as I'm concerned, below 50 and I'm inside. I do not do cold weather. And yes, I consider 50 degrees cold weather. I hate it. The upshot is we should be able to get some cool stuff done down here in the fish room over the winter while I am hibernating from the cold. And it looks like the water sprite in here is once again covered across the surface with all of that green scum that I've been pulling out of here. So I don't know whether I should just leave that alone, try to get it out, throw away all the water sprite that's covered with it like I did last time. That big guy. I know you guys can't see him, but my Tenopone was right next to my hand. He always just kind of hangs out. He doesn't really know what to do when I get this close to him. He doesn't really get panicky. But I also don't want to do anything, if you can see him, he's right here. I also don't want to do anything that's going to spook him or freak him out. Do anything unexpected or rash. Right, looks like I got some long, stringy Panagiton. So there's some Panagiton offspring. That will go in my bucket of plants in the other room, and now I've got to actually put this back in. I just kind of untucked it a little bit. It's beginning to root in, so I really should have use my scissors and cut that offshoot rather than pulling it like that, because I really did just disturb the root system a little bit. I think it'll recover and then continue to root in and be fine, but I should have used my scissors right there. So actually, let's pull some of this stuff out of here because I got way more than I need. Now, I did have one of my viewers order some plants from me yesterday, and they got lucky because I had just done a big water change yesterday on my purple spotted gudgeon tank, and I had a whole bunch of Java fern and even some temple plant that I pulled out of there. So they got their timing just right, and they were able to get a big bunch of the stuff that I got out of my gudgeon tank. That stuff I just pulled out is not going to be for sale. That was all just going in the trash. I do, however, have other stuff that is for sale. If you're interested in aquatic plants, as usual, I'll put my email below. You can check that out. In the meantime, I'm going to get around and turn the water back to filling the tank. This is all we really need to drain out of it. That's all I really wanted to do was a decent water change and get that glass cleaned down. So give me a minute and I'll be right back. All of the water sprite that I'm pulling out of here and throwing away is just covered in almost a blanket of that thick green mat. And it'll be back. It always is. You know, as I've always said, this is just part of doing tank maintenance. To me, this is like complaining about, you know, I got to cut the grass again. Well, of course you got to cut the grass again. It grows back when you mow it. You know, it's just part of having a lawn. So this to me is just part of having a fish tank, is this kind of stuff grows in it. Whenever you've got light, water, and nutrients, you're going to have things like cyanobacteria, algae, you know, basic, simple, primordial type microorganisms. They've been around since the dawn of time for a reason. You know, they're tenacious and they're ubiquitous, and if you give them a habitat to survive in, they're going to grow there. Personally, I don't dislike it. I don't even mind it. In fact, I appreciate some algae and some green type growth in my tanks and whatnot. I can't stand those tanks that just look like somebody put it together an hour ago. I was just in one of the pet stores today. There's another little teaser. Again, go check out my Patreon if you want to know what I did at the pet store today. It was a spur of the moment, no video. It was the big chain pet store, nothing like that. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that particular pet store, Petco, their fish tanks are always, they look like somebody just went in there with a scouring brush and they sparkle on the inside of the tank, and to me that just looks so unnatural and unpleasant. It's not a pleasing appearance. I know that you're in a Petco type environment or a PetSmart type environment, you know, the big chain pet stores, but I still expect to see some sort of patina on the back glass, you know, or maybe the gravel should have some kind of something in it. But when the tanks are just sterile like that, it just looks so unnatural to me. And then, of course, my good fish store has tanks that are well maintained and long established, and they all have sponge filters in them, and you can tell those are mature tanks. You know, like my tank, it's, you know, a mature tank, but you can see through the glass just fine. And that's the way I like to see a fish tank in a fish store, rather than that sterile look. And then, of course, with my own tanks, I cannot stand that sterile look. And the first thing I do, like when I plant when I set up a new fish tank and get it all planted and everything, I can't wait for all that green growth to get started, and, you know, just to mix it up a little bit and make it look more natural. Oh, you know, we got one more thing we need to do while we're doing this, and that's going to be get my big siphon hose and try to get some of that green chunks of stuff out of the back. My big, oh no, never mind. Thought I had commandeered my siphon hose to use for something else. Well, actually I had commandeered it to use for that waterfall, but that waterfall has since been disassembled, and I didn't know where the hose was, but here's the hose. See, this is a much bigger vinyl hose. The problem with this is that it sucks the gravel up with it, and then the gravel will often get clogged up. I'm not sure how to get to this one. Rapidly running out of time. See, I just tore a chunk of Java fern off that got caught. Got a little too close to the Java fern, and we just ripped the frond off. Well, that is by no means all of it. Now have a full 5-gallon bucket that fast. So that is definitely one of the benefits of using that really small siphon hose. You can do much more precise work, and you get much more time to do it in than when you use this big hose. The only benefit for this is if you've got to do around the substrate and there's a chance you're going to be sucking gravel and stuff like that up, you need the large volume of hose so that the gravel can move through it without getting stuck. As you saw with that other one, even clumps of that green stuff is enough to clog it up if it's too thick going through there. I don't see anything else that I could really be doing. There is some more of that green growth on some of the larger leaves on the Anubias down there, but as I said, I'm going to try to get back in here within the next few days and get back on top of that. I've not yet even begun looking to see if I can find any more of these rainbow fish. That's one of the small females. A couple more are hiding back there. They actually seem to school together a lot. See, you can see 3 of them right here, all in a group. And then that little group tends to school, or shoal, I guess, with the Congos, the Congo tetras that are in there. So they very clearly stay together as a group of rainbows. If one splits off, all 4 of them, you can see now they're all trailing across the tank, but the group of Congos is still in the back. So it's interesting how they sort of intermingle when they want to be in large numbers, but they still go off to be in a little small group. Maybe that's breeding behavior. We're getting ready to see some of that beginning. They seem kind of young and small for breeding behavior, but I've had them for months. They've been in my quarantine tank for quite a while before they got in this tank. I would love to know why my Cyanobacteria catfish chases my clown loaches around like that. He never seems serious about it. He only does it from time to time. I swear he's doing it just for amusement, just for something to do. But I've never been sure about that. It always just struck me as odd the way he chases the fish around like that. So very shortly the level of the water will be above my surface skimmer, or it'll be above the intake of the surface skimmer, and therefore the surface skimmer will begin working properly and will stop sucking air in, and we'll begin skimming the surface properly, and we'll stop getting those bubbles and all that noise. So in the meantime, I can go ahead and get some paper towels ready. In fact, with this tank, I can spray it down before we're even done, because if I take the hose out, it's just going to be down this end. Can't count how many times over the years I got the tank all nice and wiped down and clean and shiny, and then I pulled the hose out, or I saw one more leaf on some plant that I needed to get in there and make some final adjustment, and then I got drips all running down the front of the tank again. Probably should use a second paper towel on that. First one got a little moist. Just felt like I was smearing the stuff around. That's that squeaky noise I'm looking for. Alright, as soon as the water is up to the top corner on the right there, you can see how this tank is about a half a bubble off level. We've got about a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch difference over a 6-foot length. That's probably a little more than half a bubble off, but that's actually sitting on a aquarium stand. It came as an ensemble, so that is actually my basement floor that is that far off. Now that makes sense, of course, because we have a drain in the far end of the basement, and the floor, if it was perfectly level, there'd be really no point in having a drain at one end of the basement. So the whole floor tilts towards the end where the drain is, and therefore everything in this room is slightly off level because I based everything on the floor that I measured. You know, all my tanks that are on, you know, hanging on the wall, I measured from the floor. So one end of the tank got measured from the floor, then the other end of the tank got measured from the floor. They're different heights, you know, they're not level. So no tank in this room is level. Even the ones that are sitting on stands are you know, they're sitting on an unleveled floor. Fortunately, it's not too much. If you've got too much off level, the weight and the torque and the twisting pressure on the inside of the tank, you know, especially a larger tank like this, you can certainly run into issues. But the little bit of off level that I am is not much at all. So that looks like it's full enough. I'm going to go turn the water off. And there you go, drip free. So that is it, everybody. Done and done. The hose is put away. The tank is up and running again. The only thing I need to do to finalize it will be to put my cover back over, because you know I like my tanks covered up on the top. It keeps the light pollution down and allows me to look in the tanks much more easily than seeing all that glare coming off the top. So thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to check out my Patreon if you're interested. Don't forget to check out my email below if you are interested in aquatic plants. And then, of course, don't forget to subscribe, because you never know what you're going to get with me. I am probably going to do the uninterrupted water change series like this, and I'll probably eventually get to all of my tanks at least once. So there's your uninterrupted water change, my 125. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you real soon on the next one.